Just 2 weeks ago, I was giving tours to incoming sixth graders with leadership. What a full circle moment. One other thing I realized is that all the memories we have now are the only ones we can use when we tell stories in the future, like when I was in middle school. The stories that we'll tell are experiences we just recently had. It's interesting to think about, isn't it? I hope everyone has made some memories, some good, some sad, and hopefully some that you've learned from. As you know by now, the topic for this year's speeches is integrity. When I began writing this speech, I first had to understand what integrity really meant. So I Googled it. According to dictionary.com, it means adherence to moral and ethical principles, soundness of moral character, honesty. When I asked others what it meant to them, almost all of them said, doing the right thing even when no one's watching. Even though I've always loved that definition, I think there's more to it. To me, integrity is keeping good moral standards without expecting or wanting praise, attention, or a reward. Integrity is not a new thing. It's always been around. In fact, it's quite easy to see examples of it in the past. Personally, I believe integrity is the foundation of all things good. Without it, acts of kindness and service wouldn't be done without an ulterior motive, which kind of defeats the purpose of acts of kindness if you think about it. Regardless, integrity has always been around because there was never a time where pure goodness did not exist in the world. In English this year, we had the privilege of learning about World War II. I was happy to do so because Neiman is a German name and my ancestors, not surprisingly, were from Germany. Something we learned about that I found interesting was a man named Nicholas Winton, who in my opinion is a perfect example of integrity. Sadly, he passed away in recent years at the age of 26. Now, Mr. Winton was working as a stockbroker in 1938 in London. Just before going on a ski trip, one of his friends contacted him about refugees living in Czechoslovakia. Even though he was only 29 years old, he canceled his plans in an instant and left to see how he could help. In the process of helping those hundreds of children who became known as Winton's children, he risked his life and reputation in multiple ways to ensure their safety. He forged travel documents, repetitively visited Nazi-controlled areas, bribed Nazi officers, and put the faces of the kids in the newspapers to encourage being close families. With nothing to gain for himself, he donated enormous amounts of money to cover all the expenses. Despite all he did, the public and even his wife didn't know what he did until 50 years later. Even then, his wife had to find a scrapbook of all the details of the events in the attic and ask him about it before he even mentioned it to her. When asked why he did it, he said, "One saw the problem there, that a lot of these children were in danger, and you had to get them to what was called a safe haven, and there was no organization to do that. Why did I do it? Why do people do different things? Some people rebel in taking risks, and some go through life taking no risks at all." Isn't that a great example of integrity? It's important that we carry what we learned from the past into our present-day life. Nicholas Winton continues to teach that a risk that saves lives is a risk worth taking, even if it is a big risk. I'm not sure if I'd have the courage to do all the things that he did during his lifespan, which, trust me, is more than the little part I told you about, but I do try to be an honest person who chooses the right, even when no one's watching. I think all of us can take inspiration from him and at least think about your integrity when faced with an opportunity to. My close friends know that I will take any opportunity I get to talk about my great-grandfather. And they're right, because here's an opportunity and I'm going to take it. My great-grandfather lived in Germany when Hitler came to power. As was common for kids his age, he was drafted into Hitler's youth program. But he could see how terrible the place Germany was becoming under Hitler and the Nazis, and he knew he had to leave. So he came up with a plan. First, he bought a cheap ring at a flea market. Then, with the ring as proof, he went to his commander, told him that he was about to get married, and asked for 2 weeks off. Even though he knew he could face serious punishment if his plan was exposed for being false, he still took the risk. Luckily, the commander let him go, but for 2 weeks strictly. Following that, he told his girlfriend the circumstances and asked her to go to America with him. They got on the first boat to America that they could find, and they never returned. Even though he had only saved himself and his girlfriend in the process, he kept his integrity and high moral standards, which is something I deeply respect. After he made it to America, he fought with the U.S. Army. In the end, the stories of Nicholas Winton and Paul Lehman are both great examples of what integrity is. I really hope that as we go into high school, we can remember lessons of integrity because they'll be important when we're tempted to cheat on a test or lie to a friend. This new chapter that we'll be entering soon has so many memories in store for us. I encourage us all to choose integrity as we make good memories to tell someone else someday.